He is an active duty police captain. He and his partner were pinned down by an active shooter in a barricade situation. And there's a lot of twists and turns to this story that you may not expect. He's here to tell us all about it on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, and be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Joining us on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we have Captain Stephen Corey Flowers from the Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department. Captain Flowers, I'll call you Corey. Thanks for your service, number one, and thanks for being a guest on the show. Number two, very much appreciated.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the time. This is I'm looking forward to it very much.
It's good to have you here. And one of the things that happens is so much of what we hear nowadays is filtered to the bias of the media. And a lot of agencies, a lot of command staff, they can't get into talking for whatever reason. It's done through PIOs, and I get it. I really do. So you sharing your story is very, very much appreciated, especially considering your rank in the agency you're at.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, John. I've held for the last 25 years that we're all cops. If you're in this profession, the truth is your friend, and if anybody can gain anything from my stories or my experience, then I'm gladly willing to share. So yeah, no sweat.
How long have you been on the job?
I started in the 1900s, so I went through the police academy in 1999. However, I get to say that. So when I tell the young folks I started in the 1900s, they look at me like an archaic something. But
a dinosaur.
So this is year 25. So 25 years.
I tell people I started in 1980. And I'm an old revolver cop. So I'm a Neanderthal, knuckle-dragging, stereotypical police. And if people got a problem with that, I don't. That's okay.
That's right. No, that's right. That sounds exactly perfect.
And by the way, those are the ones I get along with the best. And I got to ask you a question before we get into your story. I don't watch much American-made police dramas anymore because they're so bad. They really don't do a good job of character development. They're so stereotypical. And the procedural stuff, forget about it. Like I yell at the TV, they don't cock their guns when it's something but
that's right.
We watch more BBC-related content because in my opinion, they do a better job of covering the dialogue and the storyline and what the characters are actually like.
No, you're right, and I do the same. I watch some of these TV shows, and I'm always thinking, do they have any consultants at all? But we tell the young folks. I do a lot of training in our academy, and I tell the young folks, look, here you go, guys. Watch whatever's your favorite, current police TV drama, and as long as you're doing everything opposite, then you're probably in good shape. So take it as backwards training. There you go.
It's almost comical the way it is. So, and the point I'm getting at is, they act like everybody is the same. We're a paramilitary group. We wear uniforms. We have grooming codes. We have all those things. But when I worked in policing, we had gays, lesbians, Muslims, Jews, African Americans, Asians, Spanish-speaking people, and white Anglos like me. That's right. I'm a stereotypical Irish Catholic police, and they think everybody's like that. We're not.
No, and that's just I guess stereotypes they're almost always lazy, but it when you zoom out and take a snapshot of any decent sized police department in America right now, you'll see exactly what you just noted, right? You'll see people of all different colors, all different beliefs. I mean, some of my best pals here who are good, really good cops, like we disagree on all manner of things. Like we have different worldviews, but what we share is an intense desire to pursue justice. And that, when you look at it that way, what a beautiful creation we get to work in.
And the thing was, we didn't care. We didn't care. Just do your job. Just handle your post. And if I need help, show up. That's all we cared about. We didn't care how you lean politically. We didn't care about this thing of and I'm going to get off my soapbox, is think of police are really into what you do in the bedroom. No, I hate to tell you, you're not that important. We don't care.
No, exactly. Yeah, when if there's a group of people that are more concerned with, be productive, don't suck up, carry your load, work hard, be up on, show up on time. That's what real cops are all about. Like, show me your character by your productivity and how you deal with and serve the public.
Now, I got to ask you a question. You're a captain. I'm not sure that the structure in your agency, they're all kind of similar. In Baltimore, in the Baltimore Police Department, your career has ended at the rank of captain. A lot of times, lieutenants got appointed to majors and district commanders, and they made the climb up to the upper echelons. But captains, that was it. That was the end of the road. And it was a very political position. They were like the administrative secretaries for the district commanders.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of a joke too. Around here too. I say all the time, I used to be a cop. Now I'm a captain. Yeah. Right. That's the idea. But my career has been only exclusively in the tactical operational side anyway. So all of my career has been gangs, guns, street, bike squad, street crimes, takedowns, SRT. I was on our SWAT team for about a decade. So currently, I'm the captain, the commanding officer over our vice narcotics division, which is we're really one of only two captains positions here that's fully operational. And so, and that's on purpose, because that's been, that's kind of my strength. So yeah, I'm out on surveillance. I'm out with the eye. I'm out on takedowns. I'm out with my guys making cases, foot pursuits as recently as a couple weeks ago. So that's just how I choose to do this job.
Please tell me you're letting the young guys do the foot chases.
Yeah, but I tell them, I stay in shape. So, if you don't want to ride it all, be there first. That's the idea.
Oh, that's good. Another thing is I was a narcotics detective for quite a while, and I was not good. This is one thing I don't clarify. I don't correct people too much. There's two things. Number one, if they call me ex-police, I give them a sharp thing. Ex is when you're forced to quit or you got fired, less than honorable circumstances. Former means you left on good terms. And retired means either you did your full 20, 25, or you got hurt and retired in the line of duty. Right. That was my case. So I tell them, no, I'm retired police. The other one was, that's right. I was plain clothes. I was not undercover. I was lousy undercover.
When you're one of your permanent styles is a mustache and standing erect and being aware of what's around you, you're going to look like a cop no matter what the environment. So those things are hard to shake for sure.
And I never could find a way to do it, but I was really good at the surveillance stuff. I was really good at the backup stuff. I was really good at all that stuff. But some other ones, they were just phenomenal undercover people. Yeah. But there was a big, big difference, and there's a big, I don't want to say skill set. It's a lot of it's learned, a lot of it's taught. But in your experience, is there a big difference between the undercover people and the plainclothes people?
Yeah, and I think the key is, can you get comfortable? Can you truly relax and not, operate in daily life like a cop among folks that are criminals? I mean, or are, subversives or, whatever's the group that you're dealing with. I was an intelligence detective for about 6.5 years here, and we did some undercover work in anarchist environment, Antifa environment, subversive groups, biker gangs, that kind of thing. And if you can, the key is can you relax and can you do everything opposite of what your normal bearings are, right? I mean, a cop walking through a mall in plain clothes, you can pick him out. His head's up. He's on a swivel. He's paying attention to his six. If he's got to hang out, he's probably standing with his back against the wall. But can you, the best UCs, in my estimation, the ones I've seen are the ones that can truly just set that aside and relax. And
by the way, you just described me to a T. People go, shh. I'll be 85 years old, plus you can walk it, and the old folks, I'm going to go, shh, there's 5-0. And that's right. That's okay. We're talking with Captain Stephen Corey Flowers from Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department. We're going to talk about a dramatic incident he was in with a partner years ago, and it's not like you would expect. Be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast on the Newsbreak app. Newsbreak is your #1 local news app for current events, free live news for you and your community. Download the Newsbreak app today for free, and be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast on the Newsbreak app. Don't go anywhere. This is the Law Enforcement Talk radio show. We'll be right back.
Did you know that there are people earning $30,000 or more per month from Meta or Facebook? Did you know that you can too? All without breaking the time bank. Learn how to work smarter and not harder on Facebook. Get step-by-step instructions on what to do and what not to do. Start with a free membership. Get details at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
Of all the radio stations in the United States, there are no other shows like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And on Facebook, there's only one official page. Do a search on Facebook for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. And be sure to like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Return conversation with Captain Stephen Corey Flowers. We'll call him Corey from here on out. He is with the Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department, and has been there 25 years. Long time. I hope he's got his retirement papers ready. That's a standing joke. But earlier in your career, and by the way, you're a supervisor of vice narcotics. We talked a little bit about that, and it's a fully operational thing, so you're not just totally admin. I'm sure that's some of your responsibilities. But early in your career, we all started off as patrol officers. I always jokingly laugh when people say, oh, yeah, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get hired by this department, and I'll be a homicide detective in 3 months. Doesn't quite work like that, pal.
That's right. It's all, all of patrol, people, really, I guess, hold up on a pedestal all these, deep cover positions and specialized positions. But, man, I've been saying it for truly 25 years. The purest police work is patrol,
That's
the
right.
patrol.
They're going to handle everything from soup to nuts. You're going to get to meet people. You'll have a direct impact on their lives.
Yeah.
It's not the same way the detectives, and God bless them, it's a different thing for them.
That's right. Yeah, the idea, I say it all the time, the idea that, currently right here in our city, we've got 600-ish cops, but there's a 22-year-old cop out here that in one day will go to somebody's house and referee a marital dispute, and they've never even been married. Then they'll go and run to a traffic crash where carnage is everywhere. Then they'll go to a homicide scene, and they'll do all that deftly, professionally, and it's just miraculous. I love watching it to this day. I think it's great.
And they've gotten better. I hate to say that. Yep. We hear more about the faux pas and the mess ups or the supposed mess ups, but they seem to have gotten better than in my day.
Yeah, and it's I think partially out of necessity, right? Because society has continually piled more and more on the police plate. Mental health, give it to the cops. Homelessness, give it to the cops. Opioid, fentanyl epidemics, give it to the cops, as well as everything that we've been dealing with. So our guys and gals, especially these Gen Xers, Gen Zers, millennials, they get a lot of flack. But what I see is young folks that are attracted to this profession. They come in and they are professionals. They become real pros.
And the other thing, before we get in your story, is you made a great point. And I asked, how much more do you expect them to do?
Right.
We've got people that they're psychologists, they're psychiatrists, they're marriage counselors, there's family counseling, there's neighborhood dispute settling, there's parking control, there's traffic accidents, there's homicide scenes, there's crime investigation, you name it. And by the way, a lot of these people have college degrees and are bilingual. And you want to pay them next to nothing and expect them to do that job. Well, when I'm kind of selfish. When I call for help, and usually be a medical emergency, the police are the first ones to show up. I want the A team to show up. I don't want the B team, and I don't want the backups.
Yep. And we've come to expect that. And again, the police nationwide, on the whole, by far on the whole, have risen to the challenge. I see these young folks, and I get to run along beside them, but super impressive. From sea to shining sea, I've got cop friends in all 4 time zones, and what I see everywhere as we travel around is just professionals. And it gives me just great hope for the future of the country, honestly.
And you tell the people that work under you and the ones that you come in contact with on a daily basis, I said thank you. I do appreciate it. And by the way, if they're married, they have spouses, tell them I said thank you to them, because you can't do this without family support.
No, you got to give them a gold medal. Any family that's riding alongside, you give them a gold medal all day.
For sure. Let's talk about your career early on in the 1900s, actually probably 2000s when you graduated academy. You got a call with you and your partner that was nothing but an ordinary, run-of-the-mill, emotionally disturbed person that wound up being arrested for disorderly conduct. Am I correct?
Yep. Yeah, this was a month after 9/11. Folks that remember that, the whole country was it was weird. Everybody was smiling. Everybody was getting along. It was crime went down. And we got a call in the middle of the night around 11 o'clock at night to the stereotypical 30-ish-year-old living in a boarding house among a bunch of college students. So the stereotypical just, doesn't feel right, kind of weird
right.
guy anyway. And he had I think 9/11 had pushed him over the edge a bit, and he was screaming about the Taliban and smashing plates in his room, and it was freaking out the whole house. So we got a call, and my best friend and I, who had been on the job together a total of maybe 20 months, got to the house, dealt with him, talked with him, took him to jail, solved the problem. People in the house were very, very appreciative, and we went on to solve a couple other complex problems that night. And then around 5 a.m. or so, right before daybreak, when the city was, had typically finally calmed down, a call went back out to the same house with the same guy in the same details, and it perked both of our ears up. And the magistrate in their all omnipotence had chosen to give this guy a written promise to appear, and he had gone back home and commenced his tirade. So Dan, my best pal, and I both canceled our breakfast plans and started effectively racing back to this guy's house to arrest him first, because how dare he trample upon the peace of the city after we had already solved the problem once. So I got there first by about maybe a half a minute, charged up on the front porch. Probably a little bit of my officer's safety was set aside because I was so laser focused on, taking this guy back to jail. Dan pulled up about the time I started rapping on the door and calling this guy by name. And then is when the first shot went off right above my head. And it didn't register.
Please tell me you weren't standing in the doorway.
I was not right in front of the doorway, but I was
goodness.
standing on a porch. Yeah, I was standing on a porch of a 3-story white clapboard boarding house, and the first shot went out the second-story window above my head, and it didn't register. You hear gunfire on the job all the time, but when it's that danger close, I think I was just, again, so intently focused on solving the problem. And then Dan, as he's running up, starts hollering, "Corey, he's actually shooting at us. You need to get off the porch." So we both kind of serpentine ran through the front yard and dove behind a police car that a third guy had parked kind of mercifully right in front of the house. And we dove behind the car, and the guy began shooting even more, shooting at the police car. We were, again, total of 20 months of experience between Dan and I, and we're laying on the street behind a police car with sparks flying up on the asphalt. And what commenced was for about the next 3.5, 4 hours, this guy retreated into the top floor of the boarding house where he had created a sniper's lair. He changed into camouflage clothing, killed the lights, and he began rotating between a shotgun, a rifle, and a pistol, shooting at us. At that point, we carried shotguns in the trunk of the car, so of course we couldn't get to those.
Right.
He shot the light bar completely off the car. He shot the hood of the car was like Swiss cheese. He was shooting the houses across the street. And every time we would look up over the car to try to develop some kind of plan, he would increase his rate of fire. So he was watching us from a tactically superior position. And Dan and I both looked at each other, and I said, "Look, pal, I got nothing. You got any ideas about this?" And Dan, in his typical superhero wry sense of humor, he said, "Yeah, I think we should have gone to breakfast." So we're laying in the street, and the first couple minutes is terror, and then after that, it just kind of got mundane and boring. Just more shots, more sparks, more getting shot at, and what came of it was a full SRT call out or full SWAT call out. Every cop in the city that wasn't busy came and started evacuating all the neighbors, blocking off streets. We got rescued out of that situation under ballistic shields around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. So we'd been there 4 or 5 hours. Wow. They gassed the house, and the guy committed suicide, shot himself.
We're going to take a short break. We'll return our conversation with Captain Stephen Corey Flowers from Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department, talking about an active shooter, a barricade situation where he was pinned down by gunfire, and as he said, it became boring. We'll tell you more about that. You don't want to miss a conversation. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We'll be right back. Follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on the Newsbreak app. It's free. And get the latest crime and law enforcement news on the Newsbreak app. It's simple, easy, and free. Just download the Newsbreak app. Then search for and follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on the Newsbreak app.
Think of Facebook as the world's largest marketing platform, and most of their features are free. Facebook has more than 3 billion users worldwide, and more than 68% of them use the platform every day. Learn how to work smarter and get maximum engagement. Plus, many people can earn a monthly income from Meta. Get step-by-step instructions on what to do and what not to do. Start with a free membership. Get details at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
Return our conversation with Captain Stephen Corey Flowers. We call him Corey, from the Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department. And this is the Law Enforcement Talk radio show. By the way, like every department across the United States, they're hiring. They're looking. If you really want to get into law enforcement, you want a great place to develop your career, Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department, check them out. And you're going to learn everything from soup to nuts. And don't let the idea that they're not a full-service agency fool you. They are. They are. So, Captain Flowers, Corey.
Yes, sir.
Earlier you said when the first shot went off, it didn't really register. When I look back at my career, and I was in 4 shootings in a little more than 11 years, and the first 2, I never fired a shot back. And these weren't the close calls. This was just actual gunfire. But and the other 2 were drawn-out affairs, but everybody survived, thank God. What wound up happening is, and I'm going to pose this as a former question, it didn't register me the threat level at first, and then things got deadly serious. And then, after it's over, they're like, are you hit? You okay? And we have to frisk ourselves to make sure, or have someone else do that, because you didn't know the adrenaline was going so much. But the one thing that comes to mind for me is, when people started shooting at me, the first thought that registered through my mind was like, this can't be happening. Number one. Yep. Number 2 is, you don't even know me, pal. Why are you trying to kill me?
That's right. It's kind of offensive, right? When you first
it's kind of hard not to take it personal, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't know me well enough to dislike me yet.
Right.
How dare you? That's right. Yeah, and, all kinds of things cross your mind. I just remember thinking, the first couple minutes are terror, and then after that I'm thinking, well, I'm 23 and a half American years old, and this is it. Like, this is how it's going to go down, me laying behind this car. I don't like that, but I also can't really affect it right now from this position. So you just kind of rationalize it away and like, well, we'll control what we can control. And that's kind of where we got.
Sometimes it all boils down to that. When life gets really simple, and friends that were in the military that saw combat understand this. Police that saw combat, it's a different scenario, but they understand as well. When it boils down to what can I do right now, what's within my control, life becomes much simpler.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Because, I think Mark Twain said, you worry about something, you actually end up dealing with it twice. You worry about it and deal with all the stress, and then maybe it doesn't happen, or if it does, then you have to experience it twice. So just out with that and control what you can control. It's easy said, difficult to do, but it's a good goal.
The other thing that came to mind for me was when these situations occurred, every one of them, it's almost as if you're talking about tunnel vision, you're talking about auditory exclusion or blunting, or whatever term you want to use. All that applied to me. Things slowed down. I didn't really pay attention. One of the last shootings I was in, my partner, who was another sergeant, was yelling at me in the car. And it was like you can hear TV in the other room. I couldn't tell you what he was saying. I just know he was talking. I was focused so much on the suspect and the threat, it's like the blood didn't even go there.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Your body kind of goes haywire, and a lot of it's protective, and some of it's, you get all of your energy, all of your focus only and exclusively to what is the threat to you, and you can miss all manner of things. It's quite interesting.
So you and your partner are pinned down, and a third officer are pinned down, and then you said another key thing, and one of the things I hated, 2 things I hated about police work were directing traffic control. Oh, horrible job.
The worst. Yeah.
Another one was hospital security, where you had to guard a prisoner, where you're there for 6-7 hours. And oh my gosh, so boring.
That's terrible. That's right.
You said that you got pinned down. You had all these other officers evacuating houses, directing traffic, blocking streets. And I don't think people realize it's not just those on the scene that are involved. It's so much more goes on in the handling of this.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's a lot of dynamics, right? I mean, there's our pals outside who are on duty, who are there helping us out. But then there's, our pals off duty. By a couple hours in, this thing's on the news live locally. I can hear my cell phone ringing inside the police car. I know it's either my parents or my friends calling, concerned that, hey, I know this guy works this beat. He works this time. Is he involved? Is he all right? So, I remember, I'll never forget the snapshot early on. As soon as we dove behind that car and the sparks started flying up, a minivan creeped by with a family, and they're looking out. They're on their way to early school or whatever, and they're looking at us laying in the street in uniform. And I remember thinking, pal, I don't know much, but I know if I see a uniformed cop laying down behind a car, that's not where I want to be.
I'm getting out of Dodge. I'm not playing around.
Get out of here. That's right.
And that's what people would ask you the dumbest questions. You're directing traffic. Well, I'll give you an example of you're blocking traffic because the fire department's there fighting a fire. And it always happens in the middle of winter when it's really horrible weather, or the summertime when it's really hot, or it's raining. And you're out in traffic and you're like, but I want to go down there. No, you can't. I want to go down there. No, you can't. And about the third time, you're like, you're yelling at the guy, and people are like, what is wrong with this police officer? He's totally lost it.
It is, and it's funny you say that. I've told my kids and my wife for years, like, the worst part for me is also traffic direction. I would rather almost do anything else on the job than direct traffic. It sets you off for sure, because you get the one guy, look, I need to go that way. Well, no, pal, all the other 500 people that just passed by also can't go that way, so you can't do that.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing here sweating my what's off.
That's right, exactly right.
The other thing that you said that it was pretty powerful, and I'm looking back at my career, and I know this sounds ironic. I know it doesn't make sense. There must have been part of me that loved the action. I loved getting shot at. I loved chasing people into alleys that were arming the gun that just murdered someone. Meanwhile, asking a girl I didn't know to dance at a nightclub on ladies' night was paralyzing. It was something, it didn't make sense. But whenever I had to do support work, like the guys evacuating people or directing traffic, I was like, man, I want to be there. What's going on?
I know. And it's because, again, I tell people forever, I think this is the best job in the world. That's the reason they make all the TV shows and movies only and always about doctors and cops. That's it. This is the best job. And everybody wants this job. However, it's not for everybody because people are different. I mean, some people, this is not for them. But I'm like you, my man, that, wherever the chaos is, wherever the near riot is, that's, to me, that's when I feel most comfortable. That's where I want to be. And that's kind of where my pals are too. I tell all the time, my sister's was a labor nurse for a while, and she was great at it. But if it had to depend on me, the survival of the human race as a labor nurse, it just wouldn't happen. I could never do that job. But she's great at it. We're all built differently, and that's, I think, mercifully so. The
one thing in my career that I actually lost sleep over was and I used to pray at night, dear God in heaven, do not let me have to deliver a baby. No, I don't want to go. I came so close. I was like, thank God the fire department got there, the EMTs.
Yeah, they're almost here. Hold on. Just hold on. That's right.
So I read, and I like you, most of the job was boring.
Yeah.
But you'd go from flat calm to life and death situation, then back to flat calm, then back to life and death situation. Sometimes you go back, and you never had a chance to eat. Or we'd eat in the car and throw stuff out the window. It never failed. But one of the things that really came through to me was that all that stuff took a toll. Yep. I was really good when the stuff was hitting the fan, when there's a lot of chaos. I knew my role. I knew what to do. It's when I got hurt and retired, Corey, that all of a sudden things got quiet and I started thinking about the bad stuff, that the issues started to pop up.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. I think that's again, I think folks called into this profession are built in such a way that you digest, those things well, and you operate well in chaos. But yeah, you turn the action off, you turn the brain off. You start to have to unpack a lot. I remember as a watch commander a couple years ago, I started keeping up with how many just dead bodies I saw as a watch commander. And so you'd go to all the calls, and some of them were circle of life, just an elderly person who had moved on. Some of them were, of course, suicides, homicides, young kids dying. And over the course of 10 months, I physically looked at 91 dead human bodies in our city. And I started thinking about it, and I'm thinking that's unusual in the human experience, right?
That's too much.
Yeah, and I talked to my friends who do other jobs, and I said, a couple of my realtor friends or architect friends, and I said, how many dead bodies have you seen outside of a funeral home? And they were like, well, none. None. That would be crazy. And so it definitely, it doesn't drive everybody into PTSD, but it definitely has an effect, and it's wise to keep a finger on the pulse of where you are psychologically.
We're going to take a short break. I'll return our conversation with Captain Stephen Corey Flowers in just a few moments. This is the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. You can find us on Facebook. Look for and like the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. There's a couple ways you can stay in touch and keep informed of what's going on with the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Number one, go to our website, letradio.com. Sign up for our email newsletter. It's real easy to find. I promise we don't spam you. I send out about one email every 2 weeks or so. And there's also a feature called Broadcast Channels on our Facebook page, where we send messages directly to your inbox, directly to your messenger. Real easy to sign up for. Make sure you like or follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. And up top, you'll see broadcast channels, one for free podcast versions of the radio show, another one top post of the day. So you too can stay informed quickly, easily, and best of all, like always, free.
Imagine contacting millions of people every month using Facebook from the comfort of your home or business. How much would you increase the success of your business or service if you could do that? I do that every day, and so can you. Plus, earn a separate revenue from Meta. Learn how to work smarter and not harder on Facebook. Get step-by-step instructions on what to do and what not to do. Start with a free membership. Get details at letbreak.com. letbreak.com. That's letbreak.com.
Return to conversation with Captain Stephen Corey Flowers of the Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department. A, thank you for your service. B, thank you for telling your story on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We talked earlier about you and your partner when you were new in your career, relatively young, a guy that you had arrested for disorderly conduct, returned home, got released by those always, we used to call them court commissioners in Maryland, but they would let people go and you've had to get called back to the same house. And people, it happens. But this time he responded with gunfire, and you were pinned down, you and your partner, for several hours.
Yep.
I believe you said his name was Dan.
Yep.
And you became really close with him, didn't you?
Yeah, Dan became, if anything will jail a friendship, it's getting nearly murdered, right? So we, that night, man, it kicked off basically a 20-year best friendship where he was more like my brother. We chose out of that to, of course, do something positive. We both became active shooter instructors. We both tried out for the SRT, our SWAT team, and we both served on SWAT for years, going through doors together. A lot of the more high-risk things I was involved in over the career was alongside Dan. And he got promoted, faster than I did. He's much more professional, sharper. He's, in my estimation, the best cop that's ever been built here. And then, I got a call from him in the middle of the day in May 2021. And he said, hey, and I was running because him and we run together and work out together all the time. And he said, pal, I got cancer. And it's bad. And I was on a desolate road running, and I fell all the way down to my knees. And it was like a gut punch. And what came of that was the next 6 months, together, me and him and our close cadre of pals, we marched with him through chemo and radiation and watching Superman effectively be taken out by this disease. And he moved on in December 2021. And, just dealing with all that, John, and watching all the tragedy from that, but also just some real beauty come from that with some of the great conversations we got to share. And his soul just got really soft over those months, and we really got to share some beautiful times among all of our group of friends, and watching him transition and move on into the next whatever. And it's been an interesting journey, man. Knowing that the first time somebody ever tried to kill me, I was with Dan Moore, and then watching him go through that and march valiantly valiantly. And I'm going to tell you what was interesting. A lot of people, get all manner of disease and, troubles in life, hardship, and you truly have a choice. Are you going to go resentful? Are you going to hate the world? Are you going to go bitter? Or are you going to march into it directly? And what Dan said to me and what he preached till the very end was, he said, I have a choice, and I'm going to suffer in a manly fashion.
There you go.
And let everybody watch it. And you want to talk about a testimony? If that's, if you can testify like that with your last months of life, I don't know that anything's more powerful than that.
The really frustrating part for me, and I guess for you too, is being police. If I got this to do, I'll do that. And we're problem solvers. We take action. We do, people say A personality or alpha males or whatever they want to use. I don't buy into all that stuff. But like my wife, the standing joke, my wife, the boss, and I, is that years ago, a tree frog got into our house and it jumped on her and she screamed, "Oh, you know what?" And I didn't respond. She's like, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "Well, maybe I just handle things differently than you. And if it's not life and death, I'm not really that interested." And she, to this day, will remind me that. But the point is the frustration where there's nothing I can do to solve the problem.
Right. Yep. Yep. And again, it's if I learned anything that I'll take for the rest of my days from just the end of Dan's story, is that you are never without a choice, right? No matter what kind of hand you're dealt, no matter how unfair life may appear, you always have a choice on what you choose to do with it, right? The next chapter, the next decision. And he showed me that from laying prone in a hospital bed, being honestly the shell physically of who he used to be, but he was preaching in a manly fashion till the last. And that's something that has bettered my life in every conceivable category since he moved on.
And really, in the end, that's all we can ask for, that maybe I had some impact on somebody else positively.
Yeah, for sure. And it's taken a couple of years now to digest all of this, but honestly, the impact that he had in moving on is, I would say, probably far more than even if he would have finished his story out here, healthy and as an assistant chief and having some power there. The folks that were around him, watching him deal with that and how he dealt with it, was just about the most heroic thing I've seen.
So you started early in your career where you're both prone on the pavement, taking gunfire, and you ended your relationship with him being prone in a hospital bed.
No, you're right. Sitting beside his bed, talking about how bad the Carolina Panthers were, and
don't even get me started on that. You're not going to get any argument from me on that one.
That's right. And he'd get frustrated. I remember we were in the hospital room one Sunday hanging out, and he said, "Hey man, turn on the game." And I said, "Pal, it's going to be the Panthers." And he said, "I know, but we got to do it. We got to march through it together." So yeah, we watched it eating Twizzlers. I was
working in the Baltimore Police Department when the old Baltimore Colts left town. And that was in Allen County, but it was not far from where we worked. And we always said they snuck out like thieves in the night. And that's the impact that had on the town. And then the Ravens came in, and the town, I think it was in 92, and eventually I became a diehard Ravens fan. So I still, and here's the thing I want to ask you. I look back on my career, and the first thing I tend to think of is the negative stuff, the really horrible stuff. And this borders on the PTSD talk, which I don't like the term PTSD. I prefer post-traumatic stress injury. Sure. And the manner of your injury, if you're in this line of work long enough, you're going to get injured. It's inevitable.
For sure.
But you've got a choice on what you do with it. That's the thing that you said earlier.
Yeah.
So I look back and say, man, I think of the bad things, but there was a lot of great times. There's a lot of great people I worked with, and that wasn't just police. That was other people in the community.
For sure, yeah. And it's, you mentioned it earlier, but, police work is mundane, it's hilarious, it's terrifying, it's all of those things. I read a line a long time ago. F. Scott Fitzgerald said, policing is kind of like a riotous excursion with privileged glimpses into the human heart, right? I mean, we see stuff that nobody sees. We see stuff that nobody should see.
Right.
And we get to see the most hilarious, crazy things, and that's why our stories are almost always the best of the best.
One of the pieces of advice I get, and people ask me this all the time, when they find out I'm a retired police, they're like, well, I got this, my son of mine wants to be a police officer, or a daughter, or a cousin, or whatever. What advice are you giving? Here's the one advice I give them. Number one, you go see a dentist once a year for a physical or checkup. You do that with a general practitioner. Get yourself someone that is trauma informed, that knows trauma, and be proactive. Don't wait for the bad stuff to happen. Go see them once a year and talk about it.
100%. Totally agree. Yep. No, that's wise. Because, at 21, you can deal with anything. That's the way we think about it. But you don't know what's on deck. So be wise, be proactive with your psychological as well as your physical health.
You made a great point. At 21, I was a totally different guy than I was at 31.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's as it should be. But you need to, you got to pay attention to yourself for sure. So
let's talk about your agency, Greensboro, North Carolina Police Department. When I think of that area, and this is not throwing shade on you, I think of Andy Mayberry or RFD, whatever it is, and that's not the reality of what it's like.
Yeah. No, you're right, man. Honestly, anymore, any urban police department in the country with more than, say, 100,000 residents or so is going to have all the same problems, just at different concentrations. We're the third largest agency in North Carolina. We've got about 600 cops. I think we're about the 60th largest in the nation. But crime is here like anywhere else. We had 71 homicides just a few years ago, so it's a pretty live time here. But we have. We have, our agency is large enough where we have any opportunity that any TV show or movie exists about. We have, SWAT, bomb team, K9, all manner of traffic, drones. Again, I run the Vice Narcotics Division now, and just lots of opportunity. You mentioned, what advice you give to young people wanting to get into the profession. I tell them all, no matter what agency you choose, just choose a bigger agency, and that's because it gives you more opportunity, right? Over the course of a 25, 30-year career, you can effectively have 6 or 7 careers of 4 or 5 years in duration. I've been a bike cop. I've been an undercover cop. I've been an intelligence detective. I've been a street cop. I was a property crimes detective. And then you bounce around. You're always challenged. You're never bored. And all of a sudden, you just had a great, fun quarter-century career.
Now the next phase for you is retired cop. And trust me, that there is a great life afterwards, but it's a big adjustment.
Yeah, it's I've got it in the right in the windshield. I'm looking at it in about 2 years or so, and I'm trying to figure out what that next chapter is going to be like. For sure, I think the proper way to look at it from my friends that have gone into retirement, and I poll them all the time, is it's not an end. It's a true turning of a page. It's a chapter, another chapter of your story. So plan proactively and have a plan. I definitely don't. I don't intend to throttle back on just living life.
Captain Stephen K. Corey Flowers, thanks so much for being guest on the show. Very much appreciated.
Yes, sir. Thank you, John. This was great.
This was a podcast version of the nationally syndicated Law Enforcement Talk radio show, and we are so glad that you decided to join us. Big thanks to our guests for telling their story on the show. 2 simple things you can do. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com. That's letradio.com. And be sure to follow us or like us on Facebook. Do a search on Facebook for Law Enforcement Talk radio show. And be sure when you see a post that we put up that you like, that you resonate with, that gets your attention, be sure to share it with your friends. Back in just a few days, another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk radio show and podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.